Greetings and God bless. I was watching a video talking about the past atrocities throughout history. The Bolsheviks killing Russians in Russia, and the Marxists in China, and you could throw in the Bolsheviks in France. I think it was the 1700s, and uh, and so it's understood for anybody who is allowed to know that kind of history. Because when I was growing up, my school was in New York City, and I went to college in Massachusetts, and they didn't really talk about the Bolsheviks. They didn't really talk anything negative about the Marxists, and not that I was focusing primarily on that, but in my studies. So I'm just learning more now about the millions of people, probably billions, that were murdered gruesomely by the Marxists. And, the communists, the Marxists and the communists, the fascists, in my opinion, totalitarian, authoritarians, are all in the same um, club, and it's a satanic club. It's a deadly club, and some cultures really are terrible on their own about killing their own people. It seems like the Balkans uh, during the 90s were just absolutely terrible. And I watched a documentary about this. I think it was a communist group called the Ustashi, and Ustachi, that were just you couldn't, like, some things that they did were not writable. Like, it was impossible to document how horrible these people treated their neighbors. Now, the reason why I say these are all in the same club is because that is satanic. Christians are taught to love God with all our heart, mind, and soul. We're told not to invest in this world, but to invest in um, our life with God. And because we're not going to be able to keep our castles, we're not going to be able to keep our money. So most people hate Christians, most atheists, agnostics, other religions hate Christians because they think that the Christians who did the Crusades or whatever, um, that killed killed other religions. They think that that's what Christians are. God never said, Jesus never said, the Bible never said, chop off somebody's head if they don't say they believe in Jesus or believe in God. There's no place in that, because God never said that. God makes believing in Him your choice, and God is a very patient God, as well as Jesus. So, those so called Christians during the Crusades killing people because they were a different religion, that wasn't Christian. Those were satanic as well. So, all the Crusades of so called Christians killing other religions, those are also satanic, authoritarians, because God, He plants His seed inside each one of us. So we know there is a God, and we know in our heart of hearts that there was a person named Jesus, a human being, that was God, that walked the earth. All of us know, when other cultures hear about this, um, they they become converted easily, because the Son of God and Jesus's gift makes so much sense. Because if and the thing is, the truth about Christianity, the truth about God and Jesus, is kind of a secret. It's a mystery, and this is done on purpose because Satan doesn't want people to know about God, and people are also so willfully ignorant that God's like, okay, you're gonna hate me and you're gonna hate my son. Well, then I won't give you eyes to see because you're hating. So I'm not gonna waste, you know, the truth on you. And I know some real petulant, childish people who are like, Well, just because I hate God doesn't mean you shouldn't tell me about you, that you shouldn't bless me. It's really so insane. But that's who's running the world, right? So before anybody starts saying how Jesus and Christians did the Crusades or whatever, um, anybody who murders anybody is violating God's will. God does not say go and kill a bunch of people. God does not say, eh, you know, He does not condone rampant murder and rape of people. That's like God is a pure God. God is a loving God. So um, so you need to really get that perspective. And so and the reason why I bring this up is so right now um, there's the trusted agents of the public good are pushing various agendas. Um, they're like nature matters more than human beings. So we need to get people out of nature. And certain shades of skin color matter more than the absence of shades of skin color. So, we got to kill the white people. We got to get rid of the white people. We got to genocide the white people, except for the globalists, and their minions. And then we have um, like uh, there's this heterophobia going on, and so there's this whole agenda. You go into a store now, we're in the beginning or at the end of May, and now all this pro LBGTQP do stuff is showing up in the stores. Uh, all these my emails like be gay. Gay. It's all about being gay. Let's be gay and trans and pedo. And like you want me to close my account, push that stuff on me. Um, so so there's only certain voices that are allowed. Also, think about the in 2020, um, hospitals had um, like they did it's called um, it's like kidnapping. It's detainment, illegal. I can't remember the formal legal term, but people were held hostages by hospitals. It's incredible. Like these hospitals need to be persecuted, sued. If anybody needs reparations, it's the families who were not allowed to see their family members that were executed, so the hospitals could make $300,000 per kill, basically. So those voices don't matter. Nobody wants to hear about that. Nobody wants to hear about the state endorsed, medically endorsed, um, World Economic Forum, WHO endorsed executions of Americans and people in the UK. That's where the highest number of deaths of that infection. It was in hospitals and nursing homes, and it was serial killers. These doctors, these nurses were serial killers. They went home. They knew that they were killing people every day. They went to work. They did the killings. And came home. Took their kids to wherever. Went to Disneyland. You know, watched football games. Went to the restaurant. Got some microbrew. You know, traveled to wherever for vacation. Went back to work. Killed more people. And went home. Had brunch with friends, visited with family over the holidays, went back to work, killed more people. This is a fact, folks. This is a fact that's gone on for years, and it's still going on. It's 2023, and this kind of thing is still going on with places where nobody stands up for these vulnerable people. But these voices don't matter, right? The anybody who speaks about this these executions that are going on as of May 2023 across our nation, not to mention the world, those voices don't matter. What matters is somebody who's gender fluid and, you know, is selling beer, or, feels offended that the crosswalk lights aren't gender fluid. Like that's what matters in our world right now. Is that right? And the terrible thing is my heterosexual um, friends who are married with children, working in conventional work environments, corporate environments, they would say that number one, they don't want to know about all these people murdered in hospitals and nursing homes worldwide, particularly in the US and the UK. They don't want to know, even if it's a fact. They don't want to know any of the information, about any of the patents, about any of the um, information that has led to this tyranny that is going on, like the UN or the World Economic Forum or the WHO, the globalists, this globalist tyranny, this totalitarian, authoritarian, um, politically correct tyranny that's going on. People don't want to know. Even conservatives, because it's number one. There's a lot to know. This is a tremendous war attack on every level, particularly it seems of Americans. I mean, because we're also getting like all this crap in our water, chemtrails, other things in our air, the venom in whatever. And since people like cities have us drink sewage water because they take sewage and then they clean it and then they put it in our drinking water. So we're drinking whatever, because like sewage treatment plants, they're not prepared to deal with all the stuff that's been in the injections and stuff like that. So whoever's drinking water is probably just getting the bio waste of what bodies have eliminated from the injections, and who knows what else. So so it's like only certain voices matter. When young people were looting, was it Chicago, um, or wherever, or when there were fires going on, like people were rioting in 2020, um, only their perspective mattered. It didn't matter that low income Black communities lost their dollar store. It didn't matter that a Black store owner had his store burnt down. And I wonder if these were mafia hits. Antifa, BLM. I think it's a new mafia. It's a progressive liberal mafia. Um, it's not like an Italian mafia or a Japanese mafia or Chinese mafia. It's this new globalist mafia, Marxist mafia. And I think the stores that got hit did not pay off the mafia, because if you look at all the people that paid off the mafia, um, they weren't the big. They weren't set on fire. Although now, 3 years later, they're the ones that are being looted. Like Target donated to BLM, Walmart donated to BLM. Actually, Amazon vans were looted, and Amazon paid, of course. Like all the big publicly traded companies paid the mafia of BLM Antifa, and I consider them. They're just their sisters, in the or gay male lovers or something like that in the pantheon of this political scheme. So, but only their voices matter. BLMers, Antifa people, they could set fire to a government building. If they're even arrested, they're released the next day. Infinite bail money, and they probably never had to go to court. They probably never had to answer, and there'd be these repeat offenders in this Marxist satanic mafia. And all mafias are probably satanic. This one that we're dealing with, BLM Antifa, is the American flavor of this politically correct mafia. And so these people are the only people that mattered. Now, people like, number one, if you look at the footage of something that happened in January that was after the 5th and before the 7th, think about it. Look at it compared to the fires, the setting, the chaos that happened for for the summer of 2020, when everybody was supposed to be on lockdown, but everybody, all these people were probably paid to go out and do mayhem. Um, so there's people who are still, that have been in solitary confinement, tortured, since that time in January, that have no voice. But this mafia has the voice, and it has the elected representatives. And I just read a headline where this guy was like, if anybody challenges, I don't know, the FBI or CIA, that they themselves and their families will die. You know what? If you're an important person that knows something, I'm sorry, you don't just clam up because your family is going to get killed, and because, I'm sorry, because people's families are, millions of families have been killed. All right. So what's yours? I'm sorry, but what's yours? What's your family? When all of you and your colleagues' silence has led to the murders, of other people's families. I'm sorry. That's, if you have a position, a very influential position, you knew this was a possibility. You knew if you're going to work deeply with government, that should things go down, that's what happens. You're faced with this dilemma, and you knew this. And if you have any honor or dignity, like, you're not supposed to do everything to, like, compromise yourself to death, um, to protect your family or protect yourself. You know, so I'm sorry. Truth is more valuable than you or your family's life. Like, more. So, and the thing is, like, I'm not saying, like, some, hot dog seller needs to commit suicide or something like that. And I'm not even saying any government official should, but, leave it in God's hands. But if you have influence and you have information, you need to get it to the right person, you know. And that's a tricky thing. I understand, and maybe there are people who have given information and they've been eliminated, their family's been eliminated, and the person that they trusted never got the information out in the first place. So I can understand that as well. But I think there's still ways to get information out there. But of course, I don't know, because I'm just some person on the net. But yeah, it's so interesting and it's so hypocritical, because, and it's like compoundedly hypocritical, because the Marxists are the only people that are allowed to have a voice, and even the pseudo conservatives like Tucker, who I think is deep state, um, like, they're fired, or Alex Jones is, sued or whatever, and maybe they really are, but, like, so even the conservatives don't, like, the credible or the high level conservatives aren't even allowed to have a voice, much less the people in the hospital who've been murdered, you know. So, and the thing is like, the who's being attacked in America. It's a white heterosexual pillar of the community type of a person. The only people who have any leverage or credibility, you have to be trans, you have to be a person of color. Um, yeah, I think like that has more, like, somehow that has more moral weight in America today. And so these leftist, progressive liberal, heterosexual, white people with families, pillars of the community, they are throwing their very selves and their children and grandchildren under the bus because they think, these liberals, these white liberals, think that black, trans, and gay people and pedos have more moral weight than they do. Now, there might there's I'm sure there's a lot of leftists who are completely evil and lack moral backbone, for sure. But uh, what is going on? I mean, like, you don't you don't like, this is just political correctness that's going on. It's not morality. It's not fairness. It's devoid of common sense. You know, black trans people or black LGBT pedo people are not the or white pedos are not the only people that have rights, rights, that deserve safety. Heterosexual white people deserve safety as well. Like, people deserve safety, but in this paradigm we're in, and I have, like, friends who are, I think they're insane. They're just like, yeah, I'm a white heterosexual male that I struggle, but you know, I shouldn't have any rights and I should be punished. What is going on here? So, um, this is where we're at. And, do you think that only certain people get to be heard, get to have a voice nowadays in our culture? Because, like, our culture right now, as of May 2023, is traumatizing. It's terrible to see people sabotage themselves, their children, their families, their grandchildren, their aging parents. It's traumatizing to see people just be willfully ignorant to killing them, to just not realizing that they were agents of their own loved one's demise. And then after the loved one is gone, they're like, "Oh, I'm so sad. It's terrible." Blah blah blah. They brought them to the euthanasia thing, and it wasn't even an easy death. That's another thing that's terrible. It's a horrible death. And the people that bought into this narrative are like, yeah, I'm so sad every day. It's weird. And it's traumatizing because you're like, you shouldn't have brought them to the death place. You shouldn't have brought them to the murder center. I've been telling you, it's a murder center. There's been hints. It's a murder center. And I've been, learning about like dystopias, watching videos about science fiction books, and it's like we're in this science fiction novel, but like I can't handle horror movies; they scare me too much. But it seems to me that, like, horror movies, they don't really very often describe this religious component. I guess like The Exorcist does a little bit, but it's like one. You know how there's that analogy about the elephant, there's the trunk and the leg and the tail, and the body. So it's one part of the story, because I do think, like, when you're in this dystopia that we're in right now, like, it's so much different than watching a movie, because in the movie there's a clear good and a bad guy, even if later on you realize that maybe the main character is the bad guy, or maybe the original evil guy is the good guy, or something like that. Like, even when there's this paradigm shift in the movie, but, like, living in this torture of the past 3 years. And the thing is, what's led up to the past 3 years has also been very difficult, because there's been this attack on housing in America. I would say for maybe the past 15 years. So there's no housing for people on a limited budget. There's no housing for people who can only work so much, because of the demands of the workplace right now. It's like it's an Olympic max effort to just endure the workplace. The workplace is toxic with the fluorescent lights and the LED lights and all the sprays and all the loud noises and all the EMFs. The workplace is a terrible place for a living organism. I'm sure animals, like, that's probably why they don't have, they don't sell birds or something like that, because the workplace would kill animals. And humans just, drink their coffee and smoke their cigarettes and, prop themselves up with probably drugs and stuff like that to just endure the workplace. So, Americans, insulated, privileged Americans love to say, oh, people are lazy, they don't want to work. No, people don't want to be tortured with you know, intolerable, and then, you have a shitty boss, shitty customers, you know, the WHO or the World Economic Forum pushing that you have to wear, that you have to do needle magic when it's not your thing, or that you have to deprive yourself of oxygen when you can barely breathe as it is. And even activists love to bash the entry level worker who does the most work for the least amount. Like, the entry level worker is the volunteer, is doing the greatest amount of charity, and they're in the most difficult living situations, because the housing, they can't afford good housing, so they have noisy neighbors. People are running dryers with terrible fabric softener smells getting pumped into their own home, and somebody's chihuahua is barking 24 hours, or somebody's music is blaring, or somebody's screaming, or there's loud appliances outside running 24 hours really loud, 100 decibels, and there's no regulation, there's no protection for a regular person, especially somebody who's, they're not there to help you unless there's like bloody murders. I lived in a place for certain demographics, and there were people dying. 1 to 3 people died a month. Nobody cared, because it seemed like people were passing in their sleep. And, was it somebody selling dangerous drugs that were killing people, or was it the pesticides that they were using that's causing a strong reaction, or was there some sort of other problem with the indoor pollution of the building, because everything was sealed, and nobody cared. So people only care if it's like dramatic, if it's a good news story, I guess. Um, yeah, and and that's another thing about voices, because, like, nobody cares about poor people, disabled people. Like, they don't have a voice unless they're kind of like um, glamorous in some sort of way. like unless they're willing to be like half naked. Like there's this lady who's like she's not disabled. She's just I don't know 300 pounds or 400 pounds or something like that. And so I saw yesterday a headline that she says airports discriminate because they don't have chairs to fit a 400-pound person. And, well, then what about somebody who's 7 feet tall? So does every airline have to make a seat for 7 foot tall, 400-pound person? And what about the 600-pound person who requires a crane to be leveraged inside the plane? Like, so when does it stop? And the thing is, like, I'm sure the current system is going to capitulate to this madness. Like, and there's no like people like where's the ethics department anywhere? You know, like I've been researching about philosophy and stuff, and like there's like philosophical, like logical standards that have informed Western civilization, like outside of war, that that's why we have buildings and running water and electricity and technology and advances and entertainment. It's because we followed common sense, and we were decent to each other. Because when we let, number one, when we're targeting any group, that's not good. That creates just a lot of terror, and people don't function. Like I would say the past few years, people haven't been functioning very well because they've been scared. And then and when we shoot ourselves in the foot, like Marxist white liberals are doing, like that's not helping. Um, uh, it's not benefiting civilization, even though that's what people think they're doing. So yeah, it's just things are falling apart, and it doesn't have to be. And like, where are the academics like that know this kind of thing? That like, where are the religious scholars that know this kind of thing? So I mean, I don't know, who all these people are. I don't have the best memory, so I can't be like, and Hegel said, and Kant said, and Nietzsche said, and I'm not able to say that off the top of my head. I'm not an instructor, and I feel like I have to do this research and figure it out, uh, so that the bots watching my channel, they'll they'll at least evaluate what I'm saying, or the big brother at YouTube. Hi, big brother. Thanks for watching. You're my buddy. You're my only audience. But yeah, it's and for me, all voices matter. I think we need to hear, or at least there needs to be a space where everybody can say what's going on. Now, when somebody's getting violent, like when somebody's threatening a group of people, violent people who are just sitting peacefully trying to take the subway somewhere, like that's not appropriate. That's no longer the like the I don't know what the word is, the public sphere, or the safe. Um, once you start attacking people because you're crazy, because you're mentally ill, because you're on drugs, you've self-selected yourself out, and you need to be in a mental institution or incarcerated or something. You don't have a right to hold people hostage because you're angry at them. And that's what this Marxist mafia that's taken over America has done. And what's so despicable is the progressive liberal is willfully allowing itself to be held hostage by the Marxists. It's like it doesn't make sense. I mean, it makes sense, but it's just so self-destructive. Like, why are liberals being so self-destructive? Why do these liberals have such a death wish? And even conservatives, like with what happened the past 3 years, like, why do Americans have such a death wish? Because Americans have experienced a lot of death. It's still going on, and nobody cares about it. They're like, yeah, babies die of heart attacks now. They didn't do it 3 years ago, but now they're doing it. You know, teenagers, athletes, they're dying, dropping dead. Didn't happen 3 years ago, but now it's normal. Now this is a new way because of climate change and gender issues. That's why people are dropping dead. That's why children are dropping dead. So it's like Americans or a lot of the West or just a lot of people in the world have this death wish because they're not resisting. Unless, like, like there's countries that are, um, like Paris is doing some resistance about retirement age, and there's some countries that are protesting financial stuff. And I guess I'm a dumb American. I can't really keep all this stuff straight in my mind, but there are some countries where people are legitimately trying to preserve their life. Unfortunately, what's going on in America is people are stealing, people are looting, people are setting fire to stores, and the pillars of the community are looking the other way. The pillars of the community are trying to rationalize, oh, it's because I'm white, and so I should just let them destroy things. Like, what's going on? Like, since when has that ever made sense in your whole entire life? So it's like, not only do Americans seem to have a death wish, or the West seems to have a death, or the world seems to have a death wish, but it seems like people want their civilization to be destroyed, except for the people that are protesting against it. And it's certainly not America, and then I don't think it's England or Australia. Like, oh my gosh, Australia or Canada? Like, what? I mean, do they have like tons more fluoride in the water? You know, so all voices matter. Just like, but not anyone more than the other. Just because somebody is a violent, mentally ill drug addict doesn't mean their voice matters more than the peaceful people trying to go home or to the store or out to a restaurant who are white. you know but that's not the narrative of our day. Unless you're Governor Newsom, unless you're Biden, then maybe you matter. Like, how is it that they're allowed to be, why isn't everybody now a trans pure person of color that's running every um, state and city? Because that's the narrative. Like, that's like, why don't the BLM, Antifa, Mafia hate on Biden? He's white. He's old. He's a man. He's heterosexual. It seems. Is it because he's a pedo that he doesn't have to be held to account for all this other stuff? So weird. So, anyways, those are my thoughts. Thanks for watching. God bless.